Hey Eduardo, good morning.
Good morning.
It's 28th of September. We are almost into entering October, the fourth and last final quarter of 2025. How are you feeling today?
Hi, Sanjay. Good morning. I'm feeling pretty good and energized. Um, the weather has changed. It is now fall, and for me, I always wait for this season because the summer is just so intolerable sometimes. So I'm happy to be in the festive kind of autumn weather. This morning was like a cool 72, and I'm looking forward to much milder, temperate time with family and friends. But I know a lot of people are starting school, getting into the hard parts of school, and I wish ever all the workers the best and all the students the best. How are you?
I'm doing good. Yeah, we did enjoy the summer when we went to the tubing a few months ago in San Marcos River. So that was fun. I don't know if uh, there are too many water sports in winter time, but I'm definitely looking forward to swimming in the Barton Springs this year in the winter. I've never done that too many times before, and I've heard it's really nice and a little foggy in the morning. So I'm looking forward to seeing that.
That's a great invitation. I might want to do something like that too.
Okay. With that, I just want to
Oh, other news too. Um, Professionally, I I can't talk about it too much, but I have shifted a profession, not really professions, but my water resources work. I do modeling work, and they've I'm going to be modeling other structures. So professionally, I'm also feeling pretty good.
I think I also I'm also having the similar experience. So again, mostly water resources, but this past week I got to do some bridge inspections, and that was very much like a new experience for me. And I'm thankful that I got to participate in that and learned a lot. And because I've always, as a modeler, looked at bridges and determined the 100-year elevations for the bridges. But, you know, I spent like lots of hours like underneath the bridge and just looking at the bridge deck from underneath. And just like if you spend so many hours, you see things like differently, and you're like seeing the beams and the columns so differently than I would usually do. And now I'm going to have a different perspective on these and different perspective on my modeling for sure. So I had a really good experience last week, and I'm hoping to continue doing this work as well along with my water resource modeling. So that's good.
I'm so happy that you're working on bridges. I've done some work on a few bridges, and it's cool. Yeah, it's a change of perspective.
Definitely. Okay, so with that, our docket for this week is mainly focused around drought and conservation issues, and a little bit of desalination and environmentalism if we get to that. So, to begin with, we have Lake Corpus Christi that supplies water to, of course, Corpus Christi. It's in the name. So Corpus Christi manages Lake Corpus Christi, and but there are so many other cities that are much smaller than Corpus, and the city of Mathis, Texas, is one of them. And this city is very much like within, I would say, 10 or 15 miles from Lake Corpus Christi. But because the city of Corpus Christi owns the dam, I believe, I haven't read, but I believe like Corpus Christi would have, first water rights to the city, to the water levels in the lake. And then there are so many like industries that are also in that watershed. A lot of plastic companies are there who require a lot of water for production. There are a lot of farms, but unfortunately, the water level has declined quite a bit. It's 15% full as of today, 15. And that has, there was a Newsweek article that basically says the city of Mathis might run out of water pretty soon. And that is concerning for sure. Um, we cannot have, a situation like that happening anywhere in US, and especially South Texas. Like South Texas is uh, so many nice people who live there. I always enjoy going to Corpus or South Texas, South Padre Island and places. And there's so much like culture there, so much food you can eat, and so many recreational stuff you can do. And seeing news like this, where a city which is a smaller population but it's facing water crisis, now that breaks my heart. So what would you say? Like, I asked Chat GPT what they should be doing, and they were like, hey, immediately, first of all, impose water restrictions, tell people what's happening, make sure everybody knows about it, then ask Texas Water Development Board for funding, emergency funding, and create a plan, basically, as how much water do you need, how much do you have, and start like implementing it. What's your observation or like analysis of the situation that Mathis has fallen into?
Oh, this is a very grave situation. It's a $4,000, 4,000 population town, very reminiscent of the town I was raised in, and a town close to the ocean that depends on a larger kind of dam for its water resources is the the relationship of our time. I think we are all related by the water. And you were saying maybe there is a prioritization with who gets water first, like maybe the higher population city that maybe has more infrastructure that is being taken care of is probably the organization or the population or the city or the town that will be able to make those calls. So I think I have not been to Mathis, Texas, but thinking about the problem, it's an infrastructure problem. Um, we do have annual rainfall in, I don't know, down in Corpus Christi. I imagine it's a little bit higher, but the costs of infrastructure are higher too because of the saltiness of the water. It tends to corrode a lot of machinery that you would use in a water pumping, water distribution, water what is it called when you get the sanitary lines intake for treatment. I think it's an asset infrastructure question to me. It's like, what are the critical assets? Which assets are in disrepair? Which assets are old? I think you mentioned earlier how we have new technology and it will take a concerted effort. It's a people problem too, where there's several solutions. I always feel optimistic that there's several solutions. That not one solution is going to solve the whole problem. It's going to be a set, kind of like ChatGPT alluded to. You have to have a few strategies happening at once. You need to kind of protect the line. You need to advance the technology. You need to assess the what's unknown and then find the value. Um, and then engage in a process of um, like constant improvement.
Yeah.
But I think that it we I also read about drilling holes that they were going to be drilling 2 holes in October, which is next month, and that's part of a menu
Yeah.
of strategies. Uh, Professionally, do you maybe not professionally, but what's your perspective on what's happening in this town?
Yeah, I think it's, first of all, I wanted to hit the nail on like what you'd said, like salinity part, right? So even if like a city is like further inland, there is always like a salinity part within the soil or within the water that's there. It's it, even if you're like in the middle of, like, for example, Utah, Salt Lake City, it's literally in the middle. It's not nowhere close to the ocean, but there's a lot of salt there. So that I just wanted to people to learn about that part, how like salinity changes from region to region, and how there are like salt everywhere, literally, and corrosion is a huge issue, like massive. I mean, that for even like steel, you would assume like stainless steel doesn't corrode, but yeah, it does. It at least the ones that we use in our infrastructure, it corrodes all the time, and um, yeah, it can really cause damage, and the cost of replacement is getting higher and higher. With that, um,
It's a modeling problem too. Can I say that? Because I'm a modeler.
it is, yeah, definitely a modeling challenge. Especially when you have to build that 7-day model of like, hey, how fast, how much water do you need, and then you have to like ask for like community support, like HEB, if that exists there. How much water does HEB need to ship more from other parts of the state into this smaller town? I believe, I mean, in South Texas, what I've heard is the water quality is already very poor, like that people actually don't really rely on the city's infrastructure for their like drinking water consumption. It's like, for example, when we're living in Austin, I personally just drink tap water, but down there in South Texas, people are not drinking tap water, man. That thing is dangerous, and most people are like just drinking water from bottled water, and maybe that's something that our grocery stores just take more water into the trucks. And again, it just proves like how critical like everyone is to this water problem. Like even the truckers, they play this huge role in like making sure the supply is getting there, um, to meet the demand. And I wanted to touch on like the future, like how the city can prepare in advance. Of course, Mathis won't be the one making the large investments, but city of Corpus Christi, which is a nearby city, will. Sorry. So yeah, we have desalination plants that have gotten much better in the last few years, especially as the marginal cost of energy has gone down to relatively zero, like cost of actual energy production. Because I have bought like a $15 solar panel from Timu once, and I can charge a battery. And it just proves that, like solar has gotten so much cheaper that you can just like produce energy for free in your home. You can put solar panels on your roof, and you can put solar panels on a desal plant. And, you're essentially the main part of a desal was like, hey, we need so much energy to convert this salt water into clean water, because we have to remove salt through this like osmosis, it's reverse osmosis process. And it's the technology, like the core hasn't really changed, but it's the same thing. You just put a membrane, you remove the salinity from the water. And the large part was it was the energy was really expensive, and now the energy is like very, very, very cheap. Like OpenAI is asking for 1 gigawatt of energy every other month. And but like 1 gigawatt is a lot. Like a desal plant probably doesn't even need 1 megawatt. I don't know the exact number, but as the cost of energy has gone down, we really need to prioritize these desal projects more. And I saw like this like a fear mongering article. I didn't share it with you, but uh, the in London there is a river Thames, and then many years ago they've privatized the water of Thames through this like private company, and they've spent, I think, close to $500 million investing in this desal plant, which has only given water for like 7 or 14 days for the city's supply. But I didn't like how the article worded like, oh, $500 million were spent. Like $500 million is not that much money, first of all. you know there are individuals in this country who have like $300 billion, $400 billion, like le- their net worth. Many multiple individuals are like, probably 100,000, maybe there are, I think actually there are thousands of people who have like $1 billion in their bank account or and worth of assets. And saying that, we can't invest like $500 million into water. I think that's a crazy statement to make. First of all, like we should be able to spend like billions of dollars if needed. If a city is running out of water, and like Corpus Christi, and at the same time, you're creating all the news about like sea level rise, and if sea level rise is rising, let's pump it all out. Let's just pump it back into the city. It's like very easy. You just need to make the right investments at the right time, and now is the time for the desal investments to be made. I think that's what I think. And anyone who says otherwise, I think should be asked to like, hey, prove yourself. Like, what's your logic behind not creating more desal plants? And desal plants is not always like ocean water; it's also the groundwater. So the groundwater is salinated because so much closer to the ocean, and there are private companies who are essentially doing this very easy thing of like putting a membrane and reverse osmosising it through some power generators. Very easy stuff. Like you can teach a high schooler how to do it, and they are able to do it profitably, right? They're making their own investment, um, and then they are able to make money out of it. And the one way is like they'll probably charge residents a lot more, but other way is that previously what was considered waste, which is the brine or the salt, is now an asset that you can actually sell. So these private companies, what they're doing is they're extracting lithium out of the brine, whereas they're telling the public, or they're telling the city that, hey, this thing is waste, no one is going to buy your brine. So those are very contradictory things which public is being told or the city officials are being told versus what the private companies are doing for themselves. So for themselves, they're selling the brine, selling the lithium, extracting the lithium and other critical minerals. I mean, there's so much. I don't want to name anything, but there's other minerals also that other than lithium that are very valuable in brine, and they're able to sell it. And why are the city officials not able to do the exact same thing at a much cheaper price tag? Or even if you need money, I mean, there's money laying around. I feel like everywhere, everyone is willing to invest. Um, Public-private partnership is on the rise. Billionaires are actually investing in their communities that they're living in. I mean, it's not that, for example, I mean, the town of Starbase has grown significantly, with the investments from SpaceX. I mean, there is a lot happening there. So, of course, if an industry wants to set up in Mathis, Texas, for any purpose, they are investing back. So, if you ask for it, people will give you money, but you need to have a strategy. You need to have like, okay, these are the things we're going to do to meet the demand for our people, and this is how much it's going to cost. And not saying Mathis is not doing that. I mean, because they have a plan. The plan is to like dig wells and extract groundwater. But you know, this is a like a alarm for so many other small cities that are in Texas. There are thousands of them. There are 10,000 small cities in Texas which have population of like less than 4,000. I would say don't wait, act now. Sorry, big rant.
I agree with the capacity of our skill set to be able to desalinate at competitive, you know, a bit with the competitive rate of investment. And then I'm wondering, how do we connect
So
the
just
problem to, yeah, go ahead.
yeah. So the part of like capacity of the skill set. So what large companies are doing, like the large consulting firms, they're inviting people who live in Australia, who live in Israel, or who live in like UK or other countries where desal has already worked. So now, first of all, like you can access talent from anywhere in the world. Like you just need to have that person on a Zoom call, or have them on your teams. And large companies, any of the large companies, they all have that access. They have employees all over the world. They can easily exchange that talent. So that's not a bigger, like that's not the major issue. And most of the design is actually done remotely. So they don't really need to be there in person. But of course, construction crew, I mean, and they can be taught remotely as well. Like a lot of education can help happen remotely. So I personally, I don't feel like that's the bottleneck. Like the skill set
No, it's
part
not a
is not.
bottleneck.
Yeah.
Um, but I didn't want to interject. Did you think I was mentioning it was what do you think is a bottleneck if there is a bottleneck?
I think it's the will, and the pushback that some of these projects are getting, uh, in terms of like, hey, if for example US hasn't had a big desal plant in ever, or Texas hasn't had a, like, there are like multiple, like there I think there are like 50 or 100 desal plants which do desalination of groundwater. But if there are not many that do like ocean water desalination. But that happens in Israel all the time. Like that happens in Australia and other countries all the time. But in Texas, these plants receive so much pushback from everyone. Like, hey, you're costing like $1 billion. Hey, you're not gonna be able to like give us like 5 days worth of water supply a year. You know, it, I
Yeah.
think those problems are not not the pushback you should be asking the
And I agree with
first
you.
ever plant. Yeah,
I agree with you that it's the pushback from the citizens or the residents
yeah,
on the energy costs that it takes to run these things because I know that China probably has
yeah,
desalination and they are one of the stronger superpowers. I imagine Saudi Arabia also has ginormous
yeah.
um, desalination plants. Um, I wonder what their water resources are in that part of the world that I assume has water issues. Like my hometown has water issues because they give all the water away due to water rights. On the surface, they don't even need to pump it; they just give it away on the surface, on
Okay.
channels and canals. So I think it is that. I think it is the will of the energy producers to be able to install the solar panels. And like you said, these kind of clean energy infrastructure. I think it's an infrastructure problem in which we just need the will. I'm not going to use that word, but the will and the unity to say, we need to clean water and we need energy to do it. So we need to install infrastructure.
Yeah, and a lot of people who are against like solar are actually against because you have to source it from China. So they're not against it because like, the technology doesn't work. They're against it because America doesn't produce enough solar panels. They're like, hey, we have to buy it from China. Like, okay, I mean, you have to have a trade.
Either we make it here or we
Yeah.
buy it elsewhere. What do you want to do? Sometimes I feel stuck in these things.
I think we're both agreeing on the fact that it is issue with you know basically not wanting to invest $1 billion into water. Like everyone's like, hey, it's too much. Like, why does a water treatment plant need like $500 million, or why do they need like $1 billion? Like in today's day and age, you have to like. I can't go back and change the value of $1 billion, but of course, if you give us $1 billion, we will be able to do something that will help people in general.
I agree. But I think structurally in Texas, we have opportunities to advocate for our community and for our infrastructure, for our town. Um, I was thinking that our towns do so much different work. Our towns are very complicated spaces. They have to provide water, internet, food, transportation, public system, health, um, a doctor, maybe. I know there's some towns that don't have large hospitals. And I always think about right sizing. That's been a topic um, for schools, but I think also maybe we need to start thinking about right sizing infrastructure for the type of city that it's in. In my sector, I deal with like large pipes, and sometimes they're too large and they produce erosion, and sometimes they're too little and water flows over it. And so there's always opportunities, I feel, to right size infrastructure that is either too expensive or not functional. If you don't have it, it's not going to function. For a growing town, I think it's important to know how much do we want to grow and what's the right size for that population. And if we want to grow to that, would it be cheaper to invest in our growth now as opposed to later? And this is a very city building conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, I think it's the cheapest it's ever been to invest because of the cost of investment is really zero. Like, actually, cost of ideas is zero, cost
Yeah.
of energy is zero. It's just, the overall project costs a lot because you have to bring so many people into it. Um, with that, I did wanted to, talk about, for example, Lake Corpus Christi has 15% water level. We live in Austin. I live in Austin, and Lake Travis has 85% water level. There was a lot of rain this past few months, a lot of flooding that happened in Travis County, Williamson County, Kerr County, everywhere. But at the same time, the groundwater levels have declined a lot. They are at, I feel like, 30-year lows or something like that. So Barton Springs Edwards Aquifer Authority has declared an exceptional drought amid looming water crisis. They're saying that you would have to have 30 to 100% of water usage reduced starting October 1st, which is in a few days. So that's very counterintuitive in the sense that the lakes are full, but the groundwater is dry. The people who in hill country, there's a lot of agriculture here. There's a lot of water use for, I think, grapes growing different crops that are local to our area. A lot of wineries here. So rice farmers. I just want to, like, uh, bring to attention, like, firstly, what could the city of Austin or others have done differently. For example, they are talking about, a $1.5 billion project in Austin where they will be putting basically water into wells. It's a aquifer storage and recovery project, I believe, and that's good. But at the same time, it's kind of always Austin is, are they like always 5 steps ahead or 3 steps behind? I just don't know what. Yeah, Austin's definitely a hard to understand city because it seems like they're on the right track, but I just don't know for sure yet. So yeah, what's your take on, like, this Barton Springs declaring the exceptional drought?
It's opportune. It's, you know, fact based. They have the measure of the levels at Barton Springs and then the water levels at what is the other? Love Lady. Yeah, Love Lady monitoring well and the Barton Springs discharge. They use these two gauges. And if one of them is below their expected rate for water health, then they call it an exceptional drought. It's a fact that sometimes we have water and that we use a lot of water through our agricultural use and our what would I call it? Or
Industrial.
commercial, industrial. Yes, or industrial uses, or agricultural uses, and it's all part of the water cycle. It rains, it recharges the aquifer. The city of San Antonio, the city of Austin, Buda, Kyle are all along a ancient um water system. This one right here, this ancient water system,
I know. I
and
think.
we all live along it because that's the most cost-effective way to live is near water, and the most cost-effective way to industrialize, the most cost-effective way to mass agriculture, arable land is near the most critical asset, the most critical resources.
Yeah.
You know how I feel about water is number one. And it is a conversation we should engage n- in not in a robotic sense, but in an advocacy type of way, because it will always be, it's not easy and it shouldn't be easy to claim something that you need that everybody else needs. And I think we take it for granted that it's a very difficult um, taking from the land because industry uses it, technology uses it, food sector uses it. We depend, our jobs and our livelihoods depend on water being available. Like if it stops raining, I don't have a job. And so it, or if channels don't belong to the people, then I don't have a job unless I get hired by a private landowner, and water resources person. But my take is that this is important to know, and it shouldn't be taken like you said with it. We should criticize it like, what is the city doing itself? We're measuring the lake levels. We're telling you that this is happening, and there is a call to action, which is, I think it could be stronger said, which is, to conserve water and talk to your representatives and engage with the water districts in which you live in, like all the various counties, all the various um, permit holders. So what you need is a permit to pump water out of the aquifer. We have many people that own permits, and you get your water from an authority that has a permit. And the call to action is that learn about that, um, and advocate for your water needs and figure out where what is your unique situation. For instance, I have a water bill that's right now, it's, what is it called? It's overdue. It's like 220 something dollars. And I don't have the money for that. So for me, it's kind of like you have to talk to the people where they're at, which is their water bill, or maybe their farm, or maybe their business, and have answers to, like, how can you conserve water as a resident owner? Well, the lawn problem, which is, you know, take care of your lawn and use the right plants and use, the right techniques to conserve the soil so that it maintains moisture along their time. As an industry owner, how can you conserve water, right? And are you being, educated on how to use water efficiently, how to upgrade, to solar panels, how to not let your infrastructure rust, stuff like that. And then to the agricultural uses, it's like you were saying, it's like, are your almonds or your avocados, like, are these smart uses of our resource? Like, do you have enough water for your farm? And are you are you paying too much? Like, how much are you paying for that? Because I imagine it's a humongous bill if you use a lot of water. And so I think there are call to actions, and when you say, like, conserve water, maybe that's not good enough. You should be like, okay, as a homeowner, what's your water bill? Talk to someone to help you figure out, like, why's your water bill so high? because like you said, the cost of water is, small compared to in the past. And right now it's still very high, but it's cheaper now. So there's that. Like you were saying about technology, upgrade your industry. That way the future won't get that way you don't run out of water in the future, and stay in touch with the professionals, working professionals in this industry in your region. Um, so I think this conversation is a difficult one because we have different perspectives, like the energy sector, the water sector, the political sector, just the being parent or being a homeowner's part of it too. We all have different perspectives, but we all need to listen to this call to action and be like, what does that mean for me? Do I even respect that? Should I even do that? And my response to that is, what are you doing with your life if you don't care about your water bill?
Yeah, and um, I want to like kind of focus on what who's the most like powerful entity in this. Of course, like individuals are being asked to do the most, right? Like we're asking them like, hey, reduce your water usage by 100%.
30 to
That
100%.
yeah. So they're being asked a lot. Like that's a lot to ask someone to like reduce that much of consumption.
Oh yeah, someone who may be at deficit already. Like,
Yeah.
hey, and
And then at the same time, who has the water rights? Like who like is my individual reduction in like of course I can grayscape all my yard, but is it gonna make a dent? I don't know. Um, because the cities and people who have the more water rights, like they are still cities are having water leaks. 50% of the water just leaks out of the system. Of course, I can't do anything about it as an individual. You have um, other water rights members, for example, large farmers who will continue to basically, there's a rule that if you don't use your water right 1 year, you lose it. It's like use it or lose it kind of thing. So they would just, run it out, like just pump it and then just, let it evaporate because that's what they're told. So whose fault is that? It's of course not the fault of the individual or the farmer. It's the policy members. Like why hasn't the water rights policy changed in the last 100 or 200 years from being like the whoever that has the water right from certain year, like it's based on like time of appropriation kind of thing. And why hasn't it changed in the last 200 years to allow to welcome younger people to adopt farming? Like if I want to pursue farming as a career, or somebody else who is undecided on what they want to do in life, or you know why is the barrier of entry so high that they have to acquire water rights from people who don't want to give it first? And thing is, it's about prior appropriations. So I personally think that individuals cannot do much uh, in terms of conservation, because we are being told like it's your responsibility. You have to reduce your consumption by 100%, and you have to be a good steward, while there are people within uh, government who would pursue strategies like, for example, in Utah, they would release the water into the creek and just let it flow back into the river and just let it flow downstream to protect the environment. Similarly, in California, there's been stories about how California just releases the water into Pacific Ocean, like just to protect the fishes and the environment of the river. So at some point, like the debate between like individual conservation versus environmentalism has to happen, where I feel like as a person, my water bill is already going to double next year or in a few months than it was this year. Most people in different parts of America and Texas are facing 3 to 6 times of increase in their water bills, while their salary is going to increase maybe by 2%. It's not 2x, by 2%, while their home taxes are also going to increase by uh, 10%. So it's kind of like you're squeezing everything out of an individual uh, as much as you can, while completely, I feel like, ignoring the responsibilities of lawmakers in terms of figuring out the framework for water rights, because of course Mathis is like 5 miles downstream of like Corpus Christi, but they're the first one or who will be running dry before a bigger city which is like further 100 miles downstream. So, and there are so many cities and towns like that who are next to a water source but just cannot use it, and there are people who have to use it or lose it. So like these kind of issues, I feel like, in 2025 haven't been discussed, debated in the legislature enough. um and yeah, I just don't see how you know me using I'm already like I'm pretty conscious of my water use. Like, yeah, I've flushed the toilet twice, not once, but other than that, like, I'm pretty conscious how much I don't water every day. It's like once a week or twice a week. um but how much more can you squeeze out of me versus like how much can you squeeze out of those leaky pipes, those just letting the water flow downstream. For the city of Austin saying like we'll fill up Carrizo Wilcox Aquifer. Like Carrizo Wilcox Aquifer is down like in Bastrop, and they're going to do multi-year study. Like what like ASR is not a old tech, it's not a new technology. You just like, there's not much to do. You just like drill a well, pump the water in. What's there to study? So I feel like, um again, a lot of lot of you know chatter around, but not like definitive actions, or people just, I feel like, is over dependence on consultants for everything. Like sometimes, if you're a city manager or if you're a department head within a city, I feel like just trust your gut at some point. Like, hey, I've done this 5 times before, or San Antonio Water Systems has done it 10 times before. We know how it's done. We don't need another study to like, which will take 5 years to figure this problem out, which needs a solution today. It's just rely on your gut, chat GPT, rely on um, things that you can access within 5 minutes versus 5 years. That's one thing I want to say.
Yeah, I hear that level of kind of antipathy to the top-down approach to fixing the future, which is like, oh, the government is going to figure it out. Like it has figured it out up to now. It's like now I'm supposed to continue to listen. That's a different critique, which is like, you got us this far, and like, why are we spending our tax dollars to have a war across the world? We've been doing that for 25 years now, since 2001. And I think it's a willpower. We have a will to, you say, send Israeli technology with our input, with our hard work, with our intellectual property. We send that to Israel, and then they don't give us the solar panels
Yeah.
that we need for our water. And so I think it is a completely easy problem, like you said. It's like we have a lot of tax revenue. And in the previous episode, I mentioned, and then now ICE has the biggest budget and they're not fixing any water problems, which is why these um, vis- is immigrants exist. These immigrants exist because of lack of infrastructure. If you fix the infrastructure, people are not going to come here. They're going to go build it at their own place because it's too expensive and too dangerous and too deadly to come to another country where they're also figuring it out and not on and expropriating our own stuff to Israel. Like if we don't watch out, they're going to be pumping out our water and sending it to Israel instead of, you know, giving us our, FEMA grants that we require
And
after
you raise,
emergencies. So how do you think about my perspective?
I think, I think that's like such a important one because, Americans are made to believe that pretty much like everyone is made to believe that, the best thing we can export is weapons. The best thing we can export is tanks, armory, uh, to I don't know which, like fighter jets to different
Yeah,
countries.
F-15 fighter jets,
F-15, yeah, and
Bobcats. We have all sorts of names for these.
and we, everyone's made to believe that's the best we can do with our talent. Whereas, when it comes to like solving, desalination issue, we have to import talent from other countries, which I'm not against it, but at the same time, if you invest in water right now, I'm sure you can build enough talent pool and enough intellectual property on this. So same way you have all this IP in within like these large defense contractors, because now why does America send everyone? Because no one else is allowed to build it, right? No one else is allowed to build F-15 because they don't have the IP or all the technology chips that are goes into this. So why isn't it a national priority similar to the border wall, where during when they asked for like the border wall in the big beautiful bill, they said, hey, we need $5 billion, and nobody questioned why they need $5 billion, except I think Senator Rand Paul, it was one of them within the Republican Party, who said like, hey, I think you can do it in 1 billion. um, so I mean, if for it's he's putting aside the fact that, okay, of course there's a lot of debate you can do whether you need a border wall or not, but he's saying, okay, if you do need it, why do you need $5 or $10 billion for the wall when you can make it in one? And that's called value engineering. So for example, every federal project every federal project from US Army Corps of Engineers or any other federal agency, US DOT, they're required to go through value engineering. So that means if you can do it in 10, can you do it in one? Just to do it, just try to value engineer this thing. And nobody, did the value engineering on the wall, because if you could like appropriate 4 billion of those 5 into water infrastructure, just like building one, of course, right now, the chip manufacturing is a big deal, AI is a big deal. um, just put some appropriation on creating this intellectual property that can be used for like desalination, or can be used for water supply projects and wastewater treatment, right? Of course you can. Like there's so much talent here in US that you could easily, overcome these hard problems. And then in 5 or 10 years, once you've built this IP, you can export that. Instead of exporting weapons, you can export like, hey, this is this is American intellectual property, no one else can replicate it, and this is how you build a desal plant. And literally, if a country can be the first one to invent nuclear fission, where an atom is broken into two atoms, that's like it's like god level thinking. If you can solve that through Manhattan Project, and if you can solve other issues with Operation Paperclip about like talent shortage, there's so much more that can be done. And I feel like the bottleneck is definitely the willpower and not the technology itself.
I I think there is. I agree with everything you said, although you failed to mention what is the interest? What is the collective interest that can keep this together as opposed to just survival? right? Because people don't make decisions for survival,
Yeah.
they make decisions for fun. And I always wonder, there's so many things our government can solve, like food shortage. Like there isn't one. So why do people go hungry? Like what an interesting problem. The water problem, it's like we have water underground. We've had it for the history of human existence, and now we're running out. So how do we use it effectively? And why would we do that? To make money? Is that the interest? And some people will make money. Most people will just get water and a job. Other people will just, you know, not even notice that it happens. But how do people care more about water as opposed to their phone or as opposed to their commute to school or to work? Like how is water related to all that other than just for showering and washing dishes? It's there has to be like a
Yeah.
just one small part of the community that's like this is very important, and oh, you we don't need everyone looking at it, but it's vital.
Yeah. The first part is accountability. I would say, like, you should hold your elected representative accountable for everything, and water is one
Yeah.
of them. Like, you should, if you're a town of 4,000 or 5, you have an elected representative, and if you are making sure that that person is, voicing your concerns, make sure, water is one of them. Why? Because you've been used to paying less than $100 for water bill, but that is not going to be easy in the foreseeable future.
Oh yeah.
Most people on average make, let's say, $5,000 a month after taxes. Let's, just random number. You cannot afford to have 5% of that going into your water bill. Like, that's very concerning. Like, you're already paying all the other bills, like your Wi-Fi, internet, your um, electricity bill, and you've been used to paying like 1% towards your water. You just cannot afford to pay 5%, because it's not just, people need to understand, it's not just the water usage that you're paying for the capital expenditure as well. So
But should we talking about people or should we talking about the high water users?
right now people,
Because you're not a high water user, right? So we wouldn't be talking to you.
yeah, I'm just talking about people, because the capex that these cities or companies will spend on the water infrastructure in future, it's all going to be collected from our water bill. They're going to put a line item saying like, hey, capex expenditure, another
Yeah.
10-20% hike on your water bill. And those things are very concerning, because you just can't afford it. Like, you will, on top of the people have to pay mortgage also and rent. Like, that's 60% of like 50 to 60% of a lot of people's like earnings goes towards rent and mortgage. Like, if you don't have rent, then mortgage.
I have a separate actor in this play, and I think it's the permit holders, like the the elected officials are just listening to the permit holders and to the residents, and I feel like we can um, talk directly to the permit holders. Is that a possible avenue of advocacy, like a direct conversation with the permit holder in your area? Because you have to renew this every 5 years or something.
Yeah, I think there should be an avenue, because um, I think I feel like permit holders have traditionally lacked a community. I haven't seen a Facebook group or any town hall where permit holders can come together and um, voice their concern. So maybe that's lacking. Um,
I like that, like a nexus of permit holders to discuss an incredibly complicated asset that they have.
yeah. And they tried with in Texas, when they created the regional water planning groups and flood planning groups, they tried it by, like, they would award like seats. Like, if it's a 10-member board, then they would have uh, 3 people from like the agency, 2 from like the water development board, and then they will have one or two people who represent industry, one person who represents agriculture. But usually, like, yeah, if you look at the names, those are not the people that represent them. Like if you go into the details, but
Because I think it's that we live in a time where we have all of these walls between us. There are like ideological walls. They are, distances, the real walls, and then there's like the fact that sometimes they just don't care. Um, and I'm into that of identifying those walls and creating those spaces that minimizes
yeah.
the amount of walls people can create.
And I think water as is an issue is one that unites everyone. It never like uh, creates those walls like, for example, what like conservative movement. It's about like conserving nature, right? Kind of
That's how yeah, that's what I
yeah.
think.
Yeah, it's about conserving nature, making sure that the parks are still parks. The people can enjoy national parks, state parks. People can go kayaking. That's the what conservatives like, right?
Or fishing, that there's
Fishing.
fish to fish.
Yeah, conservatives love fishing. They love hunting, and actually, I mean, there's stats on like how much conservatives contribute towards like these national parks to by with their
A
fishing
lot.
license. A lot, yeah, and their hunting licenses. It's a lot, like 90%. And the
Mhm.
liberals, they also care about environment. They care about like the quality of water. They care about um making sure that the future generation there's like sustainability. Like one of the big issues with like ASR from liberals is that you know are you pumping like polluted water into the aquifers, like so both conservatives and liberals, they align very well that we need this, and we did this now, and that's one reason why when any water bill, anything you put water label on, never gets rejected by the voters. Like voters always approve water, um, and any water infrastructure. But it's just that thing never gets put on the ballot by the politicians because they want all these other other stuff that they just would rather not put water on the ballot. Or and so that's funny, but I think water definitely unites people. It brings people together, because at the end of the day we all care about you know making sure that we're drinking healthy water, and we have water for the future, and we are making the right investments.
Yeah, so in my case, it seems like you said if these bills are, if you can write them, like if you can get people to write a bill
Yeah.
and actually put it through a committee, and then if it's written or draft form or whatever, and it comes out of a committee and it doesn't get put onto any of the special elections, or then maybe you're right. There is no sense of urgency in in a level 3 exceptional drought, which has only happened twice in history.
Yeah, because when I went to the Texas Water Foundation did this like huge uh, push towards the $1 billion water bill. Like they like pushed it a lot, and then they finally got almost what they wanted, like $1 billion investment each year going for the next 20 years. And this hasn't went through the voters yet, but the day they went through the legislature, we all celebrated. Like it was a huge party because everyone knew voters are going to approve it. It's not even voters are not the bottleneck here. Like that means, again, going back to my point, like people are not the bottleneck. Like people are not the ones who are like causing these issues around like water scarcity and stuff.
I think it is people. But my rationale is different. Because we live in an anthropocene. And I know we're coming close to time, so yeah, I'll give you some time back. But I think it is a people problem in getting people together to actually do it. Because we plan a lot, but we can just do it. Um, with a strategy, with your
Alexa,
representatives.
Alexa, stop. Sorry.
But yeah, no, I think it is a people problem because we do live in a world. Animals are going extinct. We're running out of water. The air's getting hotter. And so this is becoming a more and more human place. And
Yeah,
that's
no,
kind of my thought. I think it is a people problem.
yeah, I agree with that. Like, it is a problem that affects real people. Yeah, of course. It is a problem that we all have to face. And, it's causing a problem for us in my life right now. I 100% agree with that. It's just a solution when we can't really solve it.
I think there is a solution. It's a people solution, which is to find leadership. So I want to close out. I think we have a pretty good amount that we've talking about. Do you have any parting thoughts or questions?
No parting thoughts, but I did want to ask you what's your weekend plan? It's Sunday already. What are you doing rest of the day?
I am now a graphic designer too. So I'm going to be practicing my new computer software, and I'm going to be doing some promotion for jazz and poetry. And I'm going to write another promo for a political education course I'm setting up with a few of my, yeah, three classes, a three series on politics. Um, what are your plans?
Nothing as exciting as yours, but I will definitely be, on my computer doing some, just, editing this and stuff. And um, I watch football a lot. This
I want to watch football too.
fantasy football this year, I'm doing really well. So I have a team, and I'm 3-0 so far. Won every single
That's
game.
crazy.
So I'm a little nervous today because it's a tough competition with the other person I'm playing with. Um, so on Sunday nights, I used to mostly go Saturday nights to Buzzmill, this comedy for a comedy show in
Yeah, for Riverside.
Riverside, and they started doing this Sunday night commentary on NFL games. So like 7 p.m. they do funny commentary on like whatever game they're playing, and then there's a bingo. So I'm kind of something that I look forward to every weekend. And if I'm done with my stuff, then I'll probably go there, watch the game, and listen to some jokes, and play some bingo.
That's fun. Yeah, the Buzzmill is awesome.
Yeah.
I love that place.
Yeah, it's it's a magical place. All I can say. It's all about the workers. It's all about like you can have like random people you would meet there, and you can have like one of the in-depth. I had like one of the most in-depth conversations about like how workers of the world need to unite, and it was like so. Yes.
Yeah, they say we I like philosophy too. That's why I do my art, and you like philosophy, so that's what. Yeah, that place is awesome. Austin is a great place.
It's great. Yeah.
Yeah, workers of the world unite.
Definitely.
Which hand is it? One of these. Well, I'm glad to talk to you, Sanjay. Great to see you again.
Thank you.
I'll see you. I'll see you soon.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet.